Hello, Epic 7 newbies, this is Suspect Amy, and I'm here to do a quick video going through my open questions around Bystander Hwayoung, or as I'll be calling her, BS Hwayoung, because her kit is total BS. Just kidding. When is she coming? This is our Christmas unit, and she's dropping any day now on December 19th. Does her looks match her original unit? This was a huge issue with Hwayoung, so let's take a closer look here. Pass. How do you like her VA? I did see comments about her VA again.
If you can't accept it, let's just fight again. Although it'll turn out the same way.
Same as when her original unit was announced. But I have to say, I love Gentle Hawkins. She brings some much-needed diversity to the female voices. A lot of them sound a bit too similar, especially on the English side. How good is Hwayoung's astrological sign? Hwayoung is a dark Scorpio warrior. Scorpio warriors have pretty mediocre stat lines. She starts with the third best attack and third best health of any warrior sign. Her defense is just below the middle of the pack, and the rest of her stats, including speed, are the lowest warriors can possibly start with. The lone bright spot for her stats is her imprint, which gives the whole team around 11% health, or you can concentrate for an extra 17% crit chance. These are both incredible imprints, allowing you to adapt this to your gear's strengths and weaknesses. What do I need to build her? Well, she's dark, so get those dark runes ready, but also farm some carapace, spearheads, and black curse powder, so you're ready to go. How good is her S3? Fantastic. Hwayoung's S3 is supposed to be able to simply delete a light element unit from the battlefield. The difference between this skill and so many other one-shot skills in Epic 7 is that Hwayoung has zero dependence on defense penetration, which makes her extremely useful against the Ilinav meta. Her S3 is so devastating that this kind of explains why she has such a low base speed. This gives your opponents a chance to deal with her before she gets a turn. How good is her S2? Decent. Hwayoung's S2 passive makes it so that she cannot be debuffed or controlled, which means killing her or lowering her cooldowns is the only way to stop her from using her S3 to delete someone. But she's not really that easy to kill. Her defense scales at the start of the battle based on how much attack she has. How well this defense scales is hard to say. In the showcase, she took way more damage from a Crow S3 than anyone else on the team, so that doesn't look too promising. Her only drawback is that she can't be buffed, so her damage and survivability is solely dependent on what you can do with your gear. Is that all her S2 can do? No, there's more. Hwayoung will trigger her S3 on a random enemy if any of her allies loses 40% health in a single attack. This being random is a huge concern for me. It could go into a non-light unit and do very little damage, or worse, it can trigger something on the battlefield to put you in a bad position. What about her S1? Her S1 is pretty straightforward, just giving her 20% CR on every attack, which helps with her low base speed. Why does she exist? Smilegate scientists went into a lab and built Hwayoung for a single purpose, stomping the light meta. We think she'll get a passive 120% damage increase against light element heroes. The 3 light units Smilegate probably had in mind when they built her kit was Ilinav, Luna, and Ruel. Every aspect of her kit, whether it's not being able to be debuffed or not needing defense penetration, or her S3 causing extinction, directly counters these units. When you see your opponent drafting any of these 3 heroes, Hwayoung is a great pick. A lot of players build their Ilinav for damage by dropping some bulk for high crit chance. But once Hwayoung is released, I think that Ilinav builds should more or less disappear. Hwayoung can one-shot a damage Ilinav, but I feel like she'll have a hard time one-shotting Ilinavs that go full bulk. Who else should you use her against? Reddit has been mathing on this like crazy. Please ignore the showcase. Redditors are convinced that Epic 7 showcases are always done on mid-level gear. This kind of holds water, as most players have been able to outperform what we've seen in showcases in the past. They think a well-built Hwayoung should be able to soul burn S3 for between 36k and 41k damage on a light unit. I went through the list of every light meta unit, and there's only 2 that she can't handle well. Everyone else she can likely one-shot, including Vivian with her 50% mitigation. The two light units that can withstand her are Candy due to Hwayoung's dependence on being able to crit, and Senya because she's just way too bulky. Other good matchups for her are Cleavers and AS Flan, who both will easily trigger Hwayoung's S2. Arby will likely also be at risk for extinction. How do you counter her? We haven't seen any evidence that indicates Hwayoung will do decent damage against non-light heroes. Reddit speculates that she will be exceptionally average against everyone else. Most of Hwayoung's survivability is defense-based, so bringing in a non-light unit who has defense penetration should handle her pretty easily. If I go to Cecilia Bot and do a search for non-light defense penetrating heroes, wow, there's a ton of meta units here. Genua, Laya, Mort, Dilibet, Yufine, Harsetti, just to name a few. Keeping Hwayoung from soul burning is another strategy, since that drops her damage by about 25%. But unfortunately, the two best soul deniers, Tywin and Belian, will be stomped by her. Another great counter to Hwayoung are teams with a lot of injury or burns. Even though these have no effect on her directly, they whittle away her team's health in small chunks, and the extra damage procs won't trigger her S2. Newly buffed Green Armin can mitigate 30% of any single target attacks, so she sounds like a solid option to keep your party alive. Who does she pair well with? Since Hwayoung is weak to defense pen, having Ilinav by your side definitely can't hurt. With Hwayoung's slow base speed, it's highly likely that she'll be taking her turn after everyone goes first, so units that can disable the enemy team during turn 1 are incredible here. Examples of these include DDR's AoE Sleep, Monk's AoE Cooldown Reduction, or Helua's AoE Provoke. A base speed Harsetti allows you to play Hwayoung with a full damage build since it's unlikely she'll go last after Harsetti randomizes everyone behind her. There are two types of turn 2 units that you need to focus first. One are units like Senya and Haste that have a mechanic that triggers when you attack their teammates. Others are units like Laya, Candy, or Yufine that slowly build up a ticking time bomb. Hwayoung kind of fits in both of these batches. If you mix units like this together, the enemy has the dilemma of choosing who to kill first. If these 41k damage predictions come true, that would make Hwayoung the hardest hitting single attack in the game. Pairing that with damage transferring debuffs like Curse from Abigail or Melissa should guarantee some double deletes. Just remember that Hwayoung cannot be buffed, so don't use her in the back row with Senya or Abigail, or else you're just wasting their passives. How will you be building your Hwayoung? She's a bit stat hungry. Her imprint helps, but you still need to have high attack, crit chance, and crit damage along with at least 14k health, so she can survive long enough to do her job. If you're a newer player, you'll have better success building her with counter set. This allows you to utilize her S1 push and ignore speed completely to focus exclusively on the stats I mentioned above. Since her kit was made to work without defense pen, and because she will be heavily played into Ilinav, the two-piece sets I prefer are health or crit over penetration. If you don't have a viable counter set, giving her good stats between 170 to 200 speed with destruction, attack, or speed sets will work in a pinch. Since she has a hard-hitting S3 that doesn't require any build-up, I am certain some veteran players have the gear to build her very fast, similar to how Chu openers could delete a squishy at the start of battle. What is her best artifact? Artifacts that increase attack should always be preferred over artifacts that increase damage, because these will translate into more defense at the start of battle. The newly buffed Sigurd's Scythe is probably best in slot for her. 20% attack and life steal is really hard to beat. Warhorn is another sneaky good artifact on her with 10% attack plus CR push. If you can't bump her attack, then the default damage artifacts work well for her. Portrait of Saviors, Uberius Tooth, Pipette Lance, and Merciless Glutton will all help you realize your one-shot potential. If you're having trouble surviving, Proof of Valor is a solid choice. Hwayoung can't be debuffed. Does this mean she can cheese the PvE content that seals at the start of the battle like in Expeditions? No, the seal debuff in Light Expedition is not really a debuff. It's a special battlefield effect, so I assume this will still apply to her. However, if she's sealed, I wonder if that means she can be buffed. It's worth trying out. Does Hwayoung's light element damage multiplier work in PvE? It does. This should be similar to how LQC can stomp dark bosses. Hwayoung should be your go-to DPS against light bosses. Anyways, best of luck in summoning for BS Hwayoung, everyone. That's all I have today. Thanks for watching my video. Bye, everyone.